Howdy, everybody. Welcome to Highly Questionable Marketing. And we are coming back with the holiday spirit. And since we're in the gift of giving, Jurgen, we're not going to do predictions, I think, for 2023. We're going to do spoilers. We're just going to spoil
Ooh.
2023. Do you just jump in? Is it like just jump in?
Let's just be clear on the rules here, right? So the rules is do you have four predictions? I mean spoilers?
Four spoilers.
Four. Yeah, four, no more. All right, so we have four each. We're gonna go one by one. We have absolutely no idea what the other person has thought of, just like we did last year. I kind of have an idea of the order that I'm gonna go in, but if in the event that ours are similar, then I might like. But the real question is who's gonna start?
I'm starting. I'm just feeling it at this point.
All right, here we go, Jay.
All
What you
right.
got?
I'm feeling this. So I'm just gonna come out with number one. Number one prediction. Spoiler for 2023. Them demand gen marketers are about to get caught, I feel like. They're in trouble. They are in trouble. And look, I'm just gonna say hindsight's a little 2020 at this point, but there's been this big demand gen movement the last 2 years, 3 years, right? On the cusp of my opinion, when every category was pretty much growing exponentially. But man, were there a lot of people out there talking about all this fucking demand that they're creating. And I think if you're going out there and you really zeroed in on this and you're like, oh man, I know how to create all this demand. I just think a lot of people weren't creating demand like they think they were. And I think a lot of demand gen marketers, the new school that I've been talking about, and we're going to get out there and we're creating all this demand. You better get on this demand creation bandwagon. And we're about to see how much demand they can really create going into 2023 when things aren't so hot.
Jay, I don't just capture existing demand. I create new demand. I am a smart marketer. All right, I forget. Did we comment on each other's predictions last time? Should we
We
do
did,
that? I
but
mean,
let me
I
say
will
one
anyway.
thing
You know
before you
what?
comment. One thing, like I just want to say,
Okay.
I'm not going to name names, but like I'm still reading LinkedIn right now, and there's a lot of big names talking about how you need to be creating demand next year, and that's going to be your big thing. And just be super freaking careful if you're promoting that as a demand gen marketer, a CMO, that you're going to go into next year with creating demand. It is the biggest trap right now. Like, literal spoiler, I believe that. Like, please, just be careful. Go ahead, comment away on me.
Well, I like the energy you're coming with here. I have a similar-ish prediction, but I'll save it for later. So I'll just make a quick comment, which is you're saying demand marketers are going to get caught. Tell our listener what that really means. The getting
Man.
caught part. What is
Yeah,
going to happen
I see
from
what you're
that?
trying. You see what you're trying to do. You're trying to get me caught. Is what you're trying to do right now, Jurgen.
Woo! Watch out.
There's a lot of people that are out and they've been talking about demand generation movement. What we're doing is we're going out with a new way of marketing to create demand by educating our buyers in the feed and all this nonsense and blah, blah, blah. And you've heard me say on this podcast a few things. I believe demand gen is just the same playbook. That's a sales led playbook with a slightly different flavor to it, right? So when I mean get caught is over the last 2 years, there's been this huge vocal voice from these demand gen marketers. And I think they have convinced themselves and the rest of the world that you can just go out and create demand. And I think looking back now at this point very clearly, well, why are all the layoffs happening right now, Jurgen? The reason most of the layoffs are happening, the reason the most of the layoffs are happening, people overhired because categories grew exponentially. And that had nothing to do with marketers creating demand. Okay? Right? So a lot of the layoffs are people going back to reality. And that's really what recession talk and all that shit aside, when you read what people said, they overhired going into a very exponential growth period that was not because most marketers switched to demand gen and they were creating all this demand. Categories grew exponentially. So you're out there promoting that you created all this demand when you probably didn't. Like I've said numerous times, you captured demand better than before because you switched your playbook at the right time and it worked really well. But I don't think there were a lot of people out there creating any demand whatsoever.
Whew. I'm going to leave it at that. We're going to move on to Jurgen's first prediction for B2B marketing in 2023. You ready for this one?
Let's do it.
B2B marketing is going to stay boring, and this time it's all because of revenue. Now, it's a bit of an obvious one for us, but let me break it down because when I say boring, I actually kind of puke a little bit in my mouth, and I try to, stop right there. But the issue with B2B marketing is not that it's boring. We're wrong when we're saying, oh, it doesn't have to be boring. And then it's like you have some person jumping on LinkedIn doing a silly dance and they're like, yeah, you see, it doesn't have to be boring. Look at this. It's just so ridiculous. The thing isn't, is it boring or is it not? Is it truly engaging? Does it drive an emotional response in the person that it's intended for that later can be, harnessed, leveraged for the benefit of the business? Like that's the question here about B2B marketing. If it's going to go beyond pure education, right? What is it going to do? It's not going to not be boring. It's going to engage emotionally. But we will continue not to do that, in B2B marketing land, because we are obsessed with revenue. We are focused on revenue. We're doing revenue marketing. And in revenue marketing in 2023, there will not be room for something that might engage a buyer emotionally. There will only be room for things that can potentially convert a buyer as soon as possible. So we are going to skip this whole entire thing about being something to somebody and being special enough for somebody to care in favor of driving pipeline and revenue. And then it's like, well, you don't have to, driving pipeline and revenue and being obsessed with revenue doesn't mean that I'm just doing short-term crap. No, but kinda. That's it, man. What you got on that one? What do you think?
Well, my point too is right around the same thing. So I might just go in and maybe we have a larger discussion here, but
do it.
Maybe this isn't the right comment, but I was just going to say, maybe it's because you're not R&Ding your revenue here again. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's the lack of creativity there. But let me do this. Let me actually go into my second point, and let's have a larger discussion about this, okay? God, because I am just in the giving mood. I'm giving all the advice that you need for next year.
The holiday spirit is upon us.
That's right. So my point too is very similar, although slightly different flavor. And this is why I think we'll have a larger discussion really quick. So I'll just jump into mine and let's talk about this. Marketers will be forced to align to revenue. That was my prediction for next year. So I don't think it's so much that that marketers are aligning to revenue so much, but I think there's going to be, with everything that's going to happen, especially as my point one, is marketers are going to become forced to align. They're just not going to have an option. You're not going to be as a CMO to have an option at most companies to align to anything but revenue. And I put two other points with this, which is we're really finally going to see, I believe, the push to put marketing under a revenue leader, which is just a sales leader. Let's be very clear. That's part of my belief. And I think the other thing we're going to see with this, and I'll get your maybe take back, is I think agencies right now are about to toss a lot of marketers under the bus with this push to revenue because they see the writings on the wall with most marketing teams. Their budgets are getting slashed. They're aligning to revenue so that when shit hits the fan and budget gets cut, they can try to save their own ass to say, we're aligned to revenue though. You can keep us a part of your revenue team and your sales team, even though the marketing budget gets cut. And that's what our focus is, and that's what you need. Go ahead. That's my quick take on my prediction too. How you feel about that?
I'm just going to go very sort of somber. and just try to be factual too and say, yes, as a marketing leader in 2023, you will have no choice but to present yourself as a revenue first type of marketer. Everything that you talk about internally will have to be anchored in revenue. Nothing else will fly unless you're in like 0.1% of companies where there's some exceptions, right? We're talking about the majority. And this, of course, comes with a lot of issues. Like we've talked about some of them before. It's an obvious prediction, right? To say that's going to happen. It's a very, very unfortunate one because we think as marketers that is what's going to make us safe. We think that is what's going to be the way that we bring the highest value to the organization. Well, the company needs revenue, right? Like, so we need to contribute to revenue. Let's focus on that first, the most. But there's so many reasons why that doesn't actually play out the way that we want it to play out. And so if there was a kind of part B to that prediction, it's like, I would say you get forced to align to revenue and then you'll still fail. That's really the really tough one. Back to the point I was making was that because of this, because you'll be forced, you won't be doing better marketing. Like that's really the sad reality here, is that is not what creates better marketing. That is not what creates the bigger shifts that can really drive exponential revenue. And that's what's so sad about it, right? Is that in pursuit of revenue, we cut off the opportunity to bring in the most revenue.
Yeah, what happened to all these people 2 years ago that started this create demand movement, that weren't talking about revenue, that we're talking about creativity and all this shit, right? Doesn't this focus on revenue just zap it? Like it just it zaps it. Like, and they're gone.
Yeah.
They're talking about revenue now. Like all these people 2 years ago, it's like everybody's positioned themselves now to save their ass. And maybe I just want to be on the record of being on the side of marketers and marketing, and I guess we'll call it ride or die, or I don't know. But and that's why I believe it's forced. I just think most marketers that are smart enough know this is a trap for the most part, unless, like we've said, if you're in a high growth company with clear growth levers that are sustaining and scaling, Series C and above, in my opinion, probably makes a ton of sense to be a little bit more aligned to revenue and have goals and things like that. But for most companies, it doesn't pan out though. And again, let's be clear, me and you are both on record. Like marketing 100% needs to drive growth of the company, which at the end of the day shows in pipeline and revenue. But the overall focus of your marketing team and measurement as revenue, that's the trap. And that's what's happening. That I think what you said is it's just driving boring. I think the demand gen movement actually did a lot of this. All they did is it's all about demand capture. They don't admit it. Well, I'm educated about the category. Haha, like that's not demand capture, right? Yeah, but your landing page is about pain points, benefits with a fucking demo form. Okay? Like that's the shit you're running. I've seen it. We've all seen it. You're not doing anything special.
Oh, Jay's getting real salty here on the predictions episode. Let me just jump in. I feel you. Let me jump in though. It's time for my second prediction for B2B marketing in 2023. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. Second prediction. We will keep talking about acting like a media company, but nobody will do it. Nobody will do it. It isn't happening. And that is not to say that it's not a good idea. It's not to say that it could be the right thing for your business. It's not to say that the people who are out talking about it pretty loudly right now are not right. This is the difference between wishful thinking and actual predictions. My actual prediction is the B2B marketing echo chamber will keep talking about acting like a media company, which it has done, for years now. After Gary Vee was one of the early ones who talked about it almost a decade ago. And then Drift ran their plays and DG was out talking about it several years ago. And now there's a new wave. Shout out to James and Anthony on their new podcast. They're talking about this stuff. And I am on board with the thinking. I really am. There's no sort of like shooting that down. But it's just, how in the world, based on what we just talked about, are companies going to be able to justify this? How is that going to happen when overall budgets are cut, marketing teams are shrinking, people are obsessed with revenue and pipeline? Which companies are actually truly going to invest in acting like a media company? And also, before I take a quick pause to breathe, let me just say this. People don't understand. We don't understand what it means to act like a media company. There's no nuance that has been, fully grappled with around that. It's so sweet to say it, right? Let's act like a media company. Yeah, let's put out great content so people want it. A media company has content that is so good that you run a business on the back of it. Do you know what it takes to do that? Is it clear that content marketing is not the fuel for that kind of, output and in corresponding engagement on the, audience side? So we really have to come to terms with what it even takes to act like a media company. And I think that we have gone wrong in B2B with content marketing. No diss to any content marketer out there. They are, in my opinion, some of the greatest marketers and some of my favorite people in B2B marketing. But we are off track with content marketing. It isn't working the way that we want it to work. This idea that we're creating content for top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel, we're lost. We need to do a full reset on content, media, and community for that matter. Is it possible that a great company can take the approach of truly acting like a media company and then building community around that and have that as their primary way of growing their business? Absolutely. I would love to be involved with any company that tries to do that, because to me, that is still one of the biggest opportunities in B2B. But will anybody really do it? I don't know, one or two companies maybe? What do you think, Jade Barron?
Yeah, even these, what is up with these asshole marketers? I'm probably one of them, to be honest, but I'm just gonna be real with you. I'm listening to you talk and I'm just thinking what the hell are we selling ourselves here? Because these people pushing the media angle, they're not even a media company, right? Where the hell is your media company advising companies to go do a media company? We're all just people theoretical bullshit. Everybody's just out there pushing content and they ain't even built their own media company, right? Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong.
Look, I'll say one other thing. I think, yes, it piggybacks 100% on the predictions we just made around revenue, right? I can only think of one company that's doing this right now, but let's be really clear. Their marketing budget is substantially bigger than most of us. They just announced they're at 250 million ARR, right? Recorded Future, right? They hired a journalist. They started a whole separate portal. They're doing the media company actual thing. But, right, let's be they have probably considerably more budget than your average marketing team at a $20 million. And that's where I think even you're probably drawing the line. The most person, when you're focused on revenue in a small Series A, Series B, maybe even Series C company, this ain't gonna, you don't have a chance to even try this, right? When you go there, well, we're gonna run experiments around media and see how that gets us, right? Bullshit. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Well, that's the other thing about it, right? Is that in order to prove its value, you have to go so deep. The light version of this isn't to fire up a podcast and drop a couple of episodes, or to start yet another blog, or to do a few videos. Like there is no really light version that truly gives you the proof that a CEO in potentially a wartime CEO will look at to say, yeah, let's pour it all here. And that's really unfortunate. I will say this though, of course I'm being intentionally provocative by saying nobody will do it. It's not that nobody in 2023 for sure will try to be a media company. In fact, I think a few will. I would like to think, just adding a little something to the prediction here, I'd like to think that one or two companies, we're here this time next year and we see one or two companies that was able to do something along these lines because they had a really forward thinking CEO and leadership team and they saw the opportunity. But for the overwhelming majority of companies, 2023 will just be too soon. Now, for people who are building around this might still be a good year to build if you can figure out how to, because pendulum's going to swing back. Economy's going to bounce back. All of a sudden, budgets are going to bounce back. And so it's possible that 2024 is the year where being a media company in B2B becomes like everybody, like that's possible. So, but it's.
I think you had something there tough. I want to actually zero in on because I've come in Mr. Negative Nancy, I feel like at this point, giving coals and everybody's stocking, and we ain't going to play that game. Going into 2023, actually, I think there might be a tremendous opportunity if you do it right to come out of the shit show that's going to happen next year. If you do some of what you just talked about and you do it right, you are going to be insanely well positioned. If there are some smart, like you said, companies that get it and they're going to invest in this now to come out. So to give the media angle, I think a lot of stock. I think like if you have that forward thinking type of company and environment, shit, now is the time. Like if you can really pull it off, you might not get the gains you want right away. But I think coming 2024, don't wait. You might just come out of the gates just destroying, right? Like that's where I think the opportunity is to maybe give a little to this, a little gift that keeps on giving.
Interesting. Nice. Hey, what's your third one, man? Let's go.
Third one. I don't got a lot to add to it, but I'm just doom and gloom today. I think going into 2023, we are probably going to see the largest turnover of CMOs we've ever seen. I think we're going to see that tenure of the CMO decline dramatically. I think it's going to be rough. I think it's going to be really tough to be a marketing leader next year. I think the deck is stacked against most marketing leaders right now. And I don't think it gets any better next year. It's going to get harder before it gets better.
This is the greatest time to be in marketing. Let's go marketing. Woo! Yeah, it's really tough. I'm intentionally not, a marketing leader in a company right now. Not because, I'm scared of it or whatever, but it's just like, yeah, the deck is essentially stacked against us. And it's really unfortunate. I think we should do a separate conversation, just like make a note of this, to have a real conversation about what a CMO can do about that. Like in December and January, what truly, like outside the box, outside of this like typical narrative, this bullshit that everybody wants to just regurgitate, outside of that, what is it that a CMO, who has their head almost on the chopping block can and should really do? Let's challenge ourselves to dig really deep on that and have a conversation about it. Meanwhile, I think that's a prediction that it would be, I think, very, very meaningful to try to quantify that somehow next year, see if we can find some numbers on it. I think it's going to be rough. It's funny. It lines up kind of with my third prediction. Are you ready for my third B2B marketing prediction for 2023?
Bring it.
Okay, so it is about a certain set of companies, like I call them like new winners, meaning companies that aren't already taking off, right? I'm talking about the companies that are maybe a little bit smaller, but that are going to find a way to start kind of thriving. Those companies, new winners, will have figured out how to remix the talent mix. And that's because everybody has to, like get really, really serious about how they spend money now and over kind of extended periods of time. And this whole talent thing is going to be thrown upside down in marketing, where there's all this talent out there. You can't afford to hire. Like, you just had this other problem where you just couldn't find them fast enough. And now, it's the classic do more with less, which, by the way, side note, is the biggest bullshit that companies are selling employees. The company needs to do more with less. The employee does not need to do more with less. Let's be clear about this. But anyway, teams are going to be somewhere in the middle there, where they're going to have to try to do more with less. That's inevitable. It's not on every single person to kill themselves to work, 5 hours more every single day. It's about figuring out, how do we now pull in the right resources at the right price, just in time, and, just at the level that we need it. And so I think that companies have the opportunity to, and some will, get really good at balancing that and having this fluid budget around talent. Instead of saying, I have all these recs open and I'm going to hire this person full time, they're going to figure out, number one, what is it that my overarching growth strategy is? Okay, cool. Number two, what is it that I really need for that in all the stretches of this time period? Like, call it Q1, Q2, first part of the year, figuring my shit out. What do I need there? What am I going to need later? Okay, and they're going to get really good and scrappy with those budgets and figuring out, okay, I'm going to get this part-time resource for these 3 months, and it's going to make a huge difference, and I'm going to tee up exactly what I'm expecting from them. And so efficiency around using talent is going to go up in the companies that are becoming the new winners. And that, I think, is really exciting. Agencies are in that mix too, Jay. Don't worry. Amazing agencies like Elevate Demand can benefit from this.
Yeah. Gosh dang it. Here I just bashed Demand and my name's got Demand in it. God, I got to rebrand. No, I think this is interesting. And what I actually kind of want to ask you some more around this. So you're thinking, what? Is this kind of more in relation to maybe some of the, maybe I don't want to say employees, but people get the power, where what we're going to see, like a bigger part of what it would be like the gig economy and stuff, and you're hiring people at certain times and offloading people at certain times, and I think this kind of correlates next to my next prediction, but I just want to try to go deeper in understanding what you're thinking, because it seems a little nuanced to me, right?
Yes.
And the reason, let me just say one more thing too.
Specific.
Yeah, because what's the old school approach, Ben? You get in and you just build a traditional marketing team, right? I need these key departments.
Yeah.
And you're more essentially saying, like, now hell with that, right? Like, it's going to be kind of on demand as you need and reach certain parts within your growth strategy.
That's what it's going to have to be, because budgets are going to get so tight that if you want even a shot at making it through and, having the impact that you can through your team as a marketing leader, you're going to have to get crafty with this shit. So, old game, come in as the marketing leader. Well, yeah, I'm going to stand up this marketing function here. Let's see what we got. All right, well, I need my head of demand. I'm definitely going to need my content person over there. I'm going to need this. I'm going to need that. And it's just like, it's playbook style of hiring, right? Like, well, I'm going to need all these sub functions of marketing, and I need to hire all them. They need to be, hey, Mr. or Mrs. CEO, I can't do, you couldn't possibly expect me, the marketing leader, to deliver value to the company unless I have all this stuff. Like, I've been that asshole too. I've said, well, sorry, I don't have a life cycle marketing manager at the moment, so, can't really get it done right now. We've played that game for too long. And so now it's time to say, well, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Here's how much fucking like food that I have, right? Like, here's what I have to survive and to like build muscle to get through. Like, this is what I have. Like, great marketing leaders, back to this point about like maybe we can think about what a CMO could actually do that would be different than all the typical advice out there, is to say, hey, going into 2023, I want to have like complete clarity in budget, and I want it to be transparent. And Mr. and Mrs. CEO, I want to talk to you about doing something fundamentally different with my budget in terms of the talent side of it, what is previously like hiring budget, right? I want like, please give me as much autonomy as I can possibly have over all this stuff. And I'm going to orchestrate this because I have a goal, I have a strategy, I have resourcing needs throughout that strategy, and they're not constant. And I'm going to put this stuff together so that I truly can do more with less. I'm doing more with less, starting with strategy and execution, but not in terms of like I'm frantically running around trying to do more.
So many spoilers in this podcast. Like, I hope people are listening.
Man, that's another spoiler. That was my third spoiler. This is a spoiler alert.
I wanna go into my fourth one because I think it's gonna align. I feel like if I know Jurgen, you already teed up your fourth one to align with your third one.
Come on,
man. My fourth one, I think, goes really well with what you said, and I think it's all going to kind of come together here a little bit, because I'm hoping, if I know you picked a good fourth one. And maybe this is a little more positive. I think in 2023, focus will be the winning formula. And I think that kind of correlates a little bit, actually a lot of it, to what you said. And it's not right what we've talked about a little bit, doing more with less. It's doing less with less and being focused and hiring the resources that align to your actual growth strategy. No more of this bullshit of, we're going to hire SEO and I'm going to get that thing fucking going, and then I'm going to get this social person going, and we're going to get this performance person going. Like no, right? Back to always, where is growth actually going to come from? Now, what resources do I need focused on that key opportunity so that I can attack it with laser focus and impact better than anybody else that is our competition? Like, that is the opportunity next year. Like, let's talk about that media thing that you said. If you want to build a media company, you know how you do it? You do it with focus. You say, this is how we're going to grow. And you build your team around that with focus to out-execute anybody else. And I had two other points, because I just want to talk about this, right? Because there's all this noise right now about the winning formula. And you might even push back on me a little bit. And I know there's some bloody to it. It's not going to be the bullshit around category design that everybody's talking about right now. Sure, if you want to hang your hat on that, go ahead, right? It's not going to be the bullshit about creating demand or anything like that. It's going to be about focusing on one core key opportunity and attacking it relentlessly and out-learning the competition next year on that key opportunity. And I firmly believe that. Yes, and if you want to take Jurgen's advice, you're going to need some outsourced talent. You can go to elevate.demand.com and you can hire us.
Wow. Wow, Jay Barron. Okay, I'll make a couple of quick comments. So it is funny how this is starting to kind of piece together, right? So focus. Now, the question that I really have is this a true prediction, or is it wishful thinking, or is it just advice, right? Like, do we expect that B2B marketers at a significant rate will understand that the game for 2023 is focus, and it actually is doing less with less for greater impact? Will B2B marketing land buy that? Yes or no, Jay Barron?
So maybe I think it's the opportunity for 2023 as a marketing leader, right? And it's going to sound, I think, scary as hell, because who the hell wants to go to their executive team and say, hey, I'm not doing all this shit. We're going to focus on where growth's going to come from. And if you can't give me that as a marketing leader, then I don't know what the hell we're doing. So I think it's an opportunity in 2023 I actually want to say company. If the company can actually focus, we're talking marketing prediction, but to be really clear, right? Like, marketing not going to go up there and say, hey, we're just going to do content this year. You guys can all go do whatever the fuck you're going to do, right? Like, that's not how this game works. It's about the company that gets this idea that we are going to focus on a key opportunity, on the talent that we hire. We are going to be all around that as a core opportunity for growth. Our product's going to align to it. Our sales team's going to align to it. Our customer, everybody's going to align to it. And we are going to attack it relentlessly to outgrow the competition. And you can think that, well, no, I got to be doing all this stuff. And I think you can go ahead and try that. I think back to my third prediction, that's how a lot of these CMOs are going to get fired because a company continually tries to take growth any way they can get it and they don't attack it with focus.
All right, sir. I'm going to close this out with my fourth prediction for 2023 B2B marketing land, and I'm taking it back to your first prediction. We are sort of bookending this thing very nicely here, you and me as a team, as two friends, two dudes. Here we go. Everybody will run into the demand wall, and marketing will have to take the fall for it. It's less to me about whether the whole capture demand, create demand. Here's what's going to happen in 2023 for sure. Companies will be buying less stuff. Meanwhile, us as marketers, we will be marketing the stuff that we are trying to get them to buy. There is only so much fucking demand. Now, can you create a little bit more? Ask JB, he might tell you no. Ask me, might say something like, well, it's not easy. You know, whether you can do it or not at scale or whatever, it is certainly not easy. And for most teams with the resources they have, it is bordering on like really, really hard, right? So what's going to give here? Like it is literally like a wall that companies and teams are going to run into. There is no, like, people are going to say, hey, we're not buying shit right now. You know, like, you know, educate your way through that one, right? Like, create some demand out of companies saying, we are actually not opening our checkbook right now for this period of time for these reasons. So in that situation, you know, like, what are you going to do? And the problem, the second part of it is that, you know, marketing is going to, you know, take the fall, because somebody's going to have to take the fall for like this not happening. Like, why are we not hitting our targets? And it's not going to be sales because, well, look what's here. What are the opportunities to work? Well, sales can't do their thing. And then it's not going to be, you know, customer success or product or anything like that. It's going to have to be those guys and gals. Gals is so bad, by the way. Sorry, world. It's going to be those humans that have some kind of marketing title or are part of a marketing team. And people are going to look at them and say, like, yeah, you haven't created demand, have you? And it's like, yeah, no shit, Dick. I haven't created demand. So that's just a reality. And the real question is, like, now what then? Like, what are we all going to do? Are we going to pretend like that isn't a wall we're about to run into? And just keep doing and like, well, look at all this activity over here, and I'm data driven and I'm a revenue marketer, and like, are we just going to keep going like that until we hit the wall? Or are we going to try to actually really do something about it? And just as a spoiler to the spoiler, the more I've thought about this, Jay, the more I think Christopher Lockett is right. Not necessarily about category design, because I know you don't want to have that conversation right now, although I maintain my belief. He was the first person I heard in this recent time talking about damning the demand. Damn the demand. He was, you know, right now there's some people parroting, but, you know, I heard it first from him several months ago. And this idea that you can tell people, oh, you thought that you needed this, but what you really need is this, and these are the reasons why, and I happen to have something for you in that category. That I think is going to be one of the bigger opportunities to deal with this like wall that you're running into as a team trying to miraculously create demand.
Yeah.
Not very surprising at this point. I think that's like an obvious one, but I think that's how you got to think about it now.
Yeah. Hey, let me talk about a few things on this one, because I think you make some good points, right? So number
Well, thank
one,
you.
I'm 100% on the side of marketers, right? And these demand gen marketers and stuff like that. It's not that anybody. Oh, and to be clear, because you said I do think you can create demand to an extent. I just think there's a lot of voices out there that are overstating the ceiling at like exponential demand
Yes.
creation, right? Like
Yeah,
that's where
just
I'm
turn
drawing
it
the line
on.
because yeah, they're just not being very clear. Like real, like you're not going to go 4x your revenue because you're creating demand. All like right, like nobody's just tampering expectations with what you're doing by yourself. Now, I think to what you said, another point on a lot of what you're talking about here to me is about being in the position when all the bullshit's done, right? The companies that are going to get the exponential growth is as we start finishing up 2023 that did some of the stuff that you said around maybe category design, maybe these people are talking about creating demand in the sense in a media company, like, right? Those people are going to be so well positioned to crush it towards the end of 2023 or whenever the nonsense kind of comes to the end, right? And I also want to piggyback one more thing is totally believe in the damning the demand approach. We actually are running some playbooks around that with current customers right now, actually. So it's possible, 100%, but there's always caveats, right? Like has to have a large category that you're trying to dam the demand from and things like that, or you just run into those ceilings like really quickly, right? Like a lot of little tidbits nobody's talking about that comes into play, and a lot of people are just kind of doing fancy messaging, damming the demand when they're just literally the same damn thing, right? Like so. I buy into most of
Damn.
what you're selling there, Jurgen. I am with you. We're executing on some of those plays with customers. I think it's more about a game of being well positioned through this and coming out, probably more than oh we're going to go out there and we're going to create all this demand in 2023. Like you said, like people just aren't opening their checkbooks, right? But you can make sure when those checkbooks start to open up that like you are ready to go and you are, I hate to say it, but you're capturing that demand that comes in. And maybe a playbook right now might be to latch on to some damn the demand approaches as well. Totally believe in it. Think it's a very valid strategic thought process. But there's a lot of caveats that maybe we can do a separate episode that we talked about on another one. I think on that topic actually be highly relevant.
Ho, 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 Jay.